Emma Carter could never have imagined how her life would change in a single afternoon. She was sitting in the small reading nook of her modest suburban home, sipping warm tea from her favorite floral teacup, when Ryan, her husband of 2 years, came home earlier than expected. He strode into the living room without greeting her and took off his tie in one fluid motion. Emma could sense tension in his posture. His jaw was set, and his eyes flickered with some mixture of annoyance and excitement. "There you are," he said curtly, as if Emma had been hiding from him. Emma calmly set her teacup on the wooden side table and stood up. "Ryan, is everything okay?" she asked, smoothing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. She always felt a little on edge around him, never sure if he was pleased or displeased until he spelled it out. Ryan brushed invisible lint from his immaculate suit. "My mother is hosting a grand dinner next weekend," he said. "All my influential relatives will be there, my uncles, a few cousins from abroad, and some of my business associates. She wants me to bring you along." Emma felt a spark of hope. Despite the tension that often pervaded their marriage, perhaps this was a sign that Ryan wanted to include her more fully in his family life. "That's wonderful," she said softly, trying to hide her nerves. His family, particularly his mother and sisters, had never welcomed her with open arms. They deemed her too simple for a man of Ryan's wealth and status. Still, Emma believed in trying her best to fit in. Ryan waved a hand dismissively. "It's not that big a deal," he replied. "I just need you there." Emma tilted her head. "Of course. I'll be there. Do I need to pick out a dress?" "Your mother usually." He cut her off. "Dress? You won't be needing anything fancy." Confused, Emma paused. "But it's a formal dinner, right?" Ryan cleared his throat. "That's part of it, yes." He walked across the living room and placed his briefcase on the sofa. "Look, Emma, my family doesn't think you add much value to these gatherings. Mother still feels you're too small town for them." Emma's cheeks burned. She was from a humble background, yes, but she had never thought of that as a flaw. She'd gone to college on a scholarship, worked part-time jobs to support herself, and always prided herself on being kind and genuine. "I see," she said in a low voice. "But they expect me to bring you," Ryan continued, "especially because it would look bad if I came without my wife. However, it's clear you won't fit in with the conversation or the atmosphere. So," he paused, as if hesitating to drop a bomb he'd been holding in. Emma folded her hands in front of her. "So what?" His gaze was cold. "So my mother thought it'd be best if you simply helped out. You know, serve drinks, help the kitchen staff, keep things running smoothly." For a moment, Emma wondered if she had misheard. She stared at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of humor or a twisted joke. When she found none, her voice came out in a near whisper. "You want me to serve at your family's dinner? As if I'm staff." He shrugged. "It's not unusual. It happens in many families. If the wife isn't high-class enough to dine at the table, she might help with chores or keep to the background." His tone had an air of nonchalance, as though he were asking her to pick up groceries. Emma's heart pounded. She thought back to all those times she had patiently endured his mother's icy remarks and sister's petty criticisms. It was one thing to feel unwelcome. It was another to be actively relegated to the position of a servant in front of an entire gathering. She pressed her lips together, trying to maintain composure. "And you agree with this?" Ryan met her gaze. "Don't make a scene," he warned. "It's just one night. My family's opinions are important for my business dealings, and I don't need any distractions. This dinner could seal several lucrative deals, especially with the presence of my associates." He ran a hand through his hair. "Think of it as helping me out. We can't afford for you to stand out in the wrong way." Emma felt tears threaten at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. Crying in front of Ryan always made her feel even more powerless. Still, she loved him, at least the version of him she used to know, and she wanted to be supportive. If he saw this as a necessary sacrifice, maybe she could endure it for just one night. She took a deep breath and nodded, though it felt like her dignity was draining away. "Okay," she said quietly. "Good," Ryan replied, his voice full of relief but not gratitude. "I'll have a car pick you up. Don't worry about getting there on your own." Emma tried to summon a smile, but only the faintest curve touched her lips. "All right, I'll do my best." Ryan grunted in acknowledgement and turned away, flipping through some documents in his briefcase. The moment was over for him. For Emma, however, it was just the beginning of a gnawing dread she wouldn't be able to shake for the rest of the week. That night, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She remembered the early days of their marriage, when Ryan seemed attentive and caring. She had once thought they were in love, that his wealth was just a small factor in the bigger picture of a shared life. But as time passed, it became clear that Ryan's family, and their money, dictated his every move. She wondered if this was her future, always standing to the side, invisible, while others made her feel like she didn't belong. On the night before the dinner, she tried to talk to Ryan about how uneasy she felt. His response was dismissive. "You agreed," he reminded her flatly. "Don't make me regret inviting you." And so, with a heavy heart, Emma woke early on the day of the event. She wrapped herself in a plain sweater, sipped a cup of coffee alone, and rehearsed her lines in her head. "Good evening. Would you like more wine? May I take your coat?" She practiced standing straight, with as much dignity as she could muster, hoping that in doing so, she could retain at least a shred of her self-respect. A few hours later, a sleek black car arrived to take her to the Grant Carter estate, where Ryan's mother and sisters would be hosting some of the most influential figures in high society. Emma boarded the car, feeling like a lamb being led to the slaughter. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clasped them in her lap, staring out the window at passing neighborhoods that grew more and more affluent the closer they got to the gated community where Ryan's family lived. She tried to quell the anxiety swirling in her stomach. "It's just one night," she told herself. "Just a few hours of service. Then I can go home, away from them all." But deep down, she knew that this night would change everything, because a part of her was already wondering what it meant for a marriage if her own husband insisted she wasn't worthy enough to sit at his side. By the time the car slowed in front of the massive wrought iron gates of the Carter estate, Emma's heart was pounding. She took one last deep breath, stepped out of the car, and prepared to face the humiliation that awaited her inside. The Carter estate loomed before Emma like a monument to her worst insecurities. Designed in the style of a French chateau, it boasted grand, towering windows, intricate stonework, and manicured hedges shaped into elaborate sculptures. As Emma walked up the marble steps, she couldn't help but recall how out of place she felt the first time she visited, right after she and Ryan had gotten engaged. Nothing had changed since then, except, maybe, her sense of dread was even stronger now. She stepped into the lavish foyer, where a colossal chandelier sparkled overhead, casting prisms of light on the polished floor. A butler, dressed in a crisp black suit, nodded politely but did not take her coat. She realized, with a sinking feeling, that she was here to work, not to be welcomed. "Ah, you've arrived," Ryan's mother, Lorraine Carter, greeted Emma with a tight-lipped smile. She wore an evening gown that shimmered with tiny crystals and a matching set of diamond earrings. Lorraine's eyes flicked over Emma's plain attire, a simple black skirt and a white blouse that she had chosen for practicality rather than flair. "I see you came prepared," Lorraine said with a sneer. "Good evening, Mrs. Carter," Emma replied. She forced a polite smile, though her voice sounded small. She wasn't sure if Lorraine even liked being addressed as Mrs. Carter, but using her first name felt too familiar, too bold. Lorraine turned to a younger woman who stood beside her, wearing a similar icy expression. "Amelia, show her where she needs to be," Lorraine said, referring to one of Ryan's sisters. Amelia flipped her sleek blonde hair over one shoulder, her diamond bracelet jingling. "Follow me," she snapped, walking briskly down a corridor lined with oil paintings of ancestors Emma had never met. Emma's footsteps echoed behind Amelia's high heels. The further they walked from the foyer, the more she felt like she was descending into the staff quarters, a part of the estate she had never before seen. Eventually, Amelia opened a door leading to a small corridor that smelled faintly of bleach and cooking spices. "Kitchen's through there," Amelia said, barely glancing at Emma. "The head chef will tell you what to do. Mother wants champagne served first." Make sure you're quick about it. Our guests will arrive soon. And for heaven's sake, don't break anything. Everything here costs more than your entire wardrobe. Emma swallowed the retort forming on her tongue. Instead, she nodded. All right, she said softly. Amelia glanced over Emma's clothing again. That's what you're wearing. You look like you're dressed for a funeral. Here. She reached into a nearby closet and pulled out a crisp apron. Put this on. It'll keep you from getting stains on that outfit. Emma took the apron, her cheeks burning. Amelia smirked, evidently enjoying Emma's discomfort. After one last withering look, she turned and left. In the kitchen, Emma found a swarm of caterers, chefs, and servers bustling about. Large pots bubbled on the stove, and silver platters gleamed under fluorescent lights. The head chef, a short, wiry man named Marcel, greeted her with a clipped French accent. You're Mrs. Carter, yes? He asked, looking her up and down skeptically. Emma hesitated. Emma, she corrected. Just call me Emma. I'm here to help serve. Marcel raised an eyebrow. Very well. We're short-staffed tonight, so your help is needed. He handed her a tray of champagne flutes. The guests have begun to arrive. You'll enter the main hall through the side door. Offer each guest a glass, smile politely, and then return for more. Emma nodded, taking the tray carefully. Got it. Before leaving the kitchen, she paused at a large mirror on the wall. She adjusted the apron, tucking in any stray fabric, and took a moment to compose herself. I can do this, she whispered. Just keep your head high. When she stepped into the grand hall, she was greeted by the sight of Ryan's extended family and friends milling about in glittering attire. The women wore designer gowns, and the men were in tailored suits. There were hushed murmurs of polite conversation, the occasional burst of laughter, and the distinct clink of fine china. Emma recognized a few faces from her wedding day, some that had barely acknowledged her existence back then either. Her grip tightened on the tray. She moved carefully through the crowd, offering champagne flutes to guests whose eyes barely flickered over her. Now and then, she caught snippets of conversation. The stock market soared this week. Just acquired another vacation home in Malibu. Did you see her shoes? Simply divine. Emma felt like an outsider intruding on a secret world. As she made her rounds, she spotted Ryan standing in a corner, talking to a group of men in sleek suits. From their firm handshakes and the way they commanded attention, she guessed they were his business associates. Ryan turned his head slightly, his gaze grazing over Emma for half a second without acknowledgement. She steeled herself and continued to serve. Soon, Ryan's sisters, Amelia and Juliet, sauntered up, each holding nearly full champagne glasses, though they pretended to need more. I'll take another one, Juliet said, extending her empty hand. She wore an emerald silk gown that draped elegantly over her tall, lithe frame. You know, Emma, she said loudly, if you're going to serve champagne, at least do it with some enthusiasm. Amelia snickered. Right. Your smile looks so forced. People are going to think you're holding a grudge or something. Emma swallowed. I'm just a bit nervous, she confessed quietly. I've never done this before. Juliet feigned pity. Poor thing, she cooed, before bursting into laughter. Don't spill any on me, or Mother will have a fit. The two sisters then strutted off, leaving Emma feeling like she'd been slapped. She could feel her face grow hot, but she forced herself to remain calm. She reminded herself of all the times she'd volunteered at her small-town church events or helped at local charities where she used to live. Serving drinks there had never felt humiliating, because she'd been doing it out of kindness. But here, every glance was laced with judgment. Emma attempted to keep the tray steady, her posture poised. She noted Ryan's mother whispering something about her to a guest, who responded with an astonished lift of her eyebrows. By the third round, Emma's shoulders were tense, her feet already aching in her modest heels. As she moved between clusters of guests, she overheard a conversation that made her pause. Ryan's wife, the one with no pedigree, a man asked. A shrill female voice answered, Yes, that's her. It's beyond me why he married her. Clearly, she's better suited to domestic tasks. It stung more than Emma wanted to admit. She retreated to the kitchen, placed the empty tray on the counter, and clenched her fists. She reminded herself, this is just for tonight. But a bitter taste was rising in her throat. Why did Ryan have to go along with this? Why couldn't he defend her even once? Marcel, the head chef, interrupted her thoughts. We need you to take the appetizers out. Then you can help serve dinner. The guests are seated now. Seated. Emma realized the dinner was about to begin, and that she wasn't to sit beside her husband. Instead, she would deliver the meal to people who considered her beneath them. Her hands trembled as she grabbed a tray of bite-sized hors d'oeuvres. Despite the humiliation washing over her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was going on. Ryan's mother and sisters seemed too satisfied, like they had orchestrated this whole scene to make Emma look small. And Ryan, he cared more about appearances than about her feelings. That much was clear. She wondered if part of this was to impress his business associates, to show them that he had no ties to a woman who might tarnish his image in their eyes. Still, she pushed forward into the dining room, balancing plates and forcing her face into a polite, neutral mask. If they were trying to break her, she vowed silently, they would not succeed. She'd serve every glass, every dish, and walk out with her head held high, even if it meant swallowing every ounce of pride she had. As she set the plates in front of guests, she maintained soft eye contact and smiled. Most of them ignored her. Some made small talk with each other as if she didn't exist. But a few, particularly some older business associates, offered polite nods and occasional thanks. Emma noticed one man in particular, tall, silver-haired, with sharp eyes, watching her with quiet curiosity as she served each course. She recognized him as Mr. Harrison, one of Ryan's most valuable clients. The question was, what exactly was he noticing? Emma hovered by the side of the dining room, observing the glittering tableau before her. The long table was draped in fine white linen and adorned with crystal candelabras, silver cutlery, and exquisite floral centerpieces. Every detail screamed opulence. Seated at this table were men and women in designer gowns and custom-tailored suits, each discussing acquisitions, mergers, and the latest luxury vacations. Meanwhile, Emma stood in a simple apron, her hair pulled back into a practical bun, waiting for any subtle wave of a hand indicating a guest wanted more wine or a fresh plate. She had never felt so invisible, and yet so keenly scrutinized in her life. Ryan was seated midway down the table, between his mother and a prominent business partner. He occasionally glanced at Emma, but only fleetingly, never meeting her eyes. She suspected that acknowledging her might tarnish the image he was trying so desperately to cultivate. Lorraine, his mother, offered sly smiles in Emma's direction, as though reveling in the spectacle. Emma's sisters-in-law, Amelia and Juliet, sat close together, whispering into each other's ears and giggling behind their hands. Halfway through the appetizer course, delicate bites of seared scallops and microgreens, Emma felt her heart lurch when one of Ryan's relatives, Aunt Constance, announced loudly, "So, Ryan, where is that wife of yours we've heard so little about? Isn't she joining us at the table tonight?" Emma glanced over, momentarily hopeful. Perhaps this would force Ryan to explain, maybe even defend her. But Ryan's mother answered for him before he could speak. "She's been so gracious to help us serve tonight," Lorraine declared, lifting her chin. Emma insisted on contributing in that way since she doesn't enjoy high society events. Emma felt her stomach knot. She didn't recall ever saying she didn't enjoy such events. But there was no point in contradicting Lorraine. Aunt Constance raised an eyebrow. "How admirable. Though it is odd, isn't it?" She cast her gaze around the table. "I'd think, after 2 years of marriage, she'd be comfortable enough to join us." Lorraine smiled thinly. Some women simply aren't suited for these occasions. A quiet hush fell around the table. Emma forced herself to keep moving, refilling water glasses, clearing empty plates. She reminded herself that dignity was not tied to social status. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. "You can only be humiliated if you allow their insults to define you." It gave her the strength to keep her posture straight. Just then, Amelia snapped her fingers. "Emma, more wine," she demanded, her voice loud enough to catch the attention of half the table. Several guests turned to stare. Emma walked over, carefully uncorking a fresh bottle. Her hand shook slightly, but she poured without spilling a drop. Amelia rolled her eyes. "Don't hover," she said when Emma finished. "Go stand over there until you're needed again." Emma bit the inside of her cheek. She gave a small nod and stepped back to her station by the wall. The atmosphere in the room was suffocating, heavy with snobbery and pretense. But it was also laced with an undercurrent of unease, as if even some of these wealthy guests realized the cruelty on display. Emma found herself catching sympathetic looks from a few people, though no one spoke up. As the main course was served, roasted lamb with truffle sauce, Emma discreetly carried plates from the kitchen to the dining room. Her feet ached in her modest shoes, and perspiration beaded on her forehead from the heat of the kitchen. But worse than the physical discomfort was the emotional toll. Why did Ryan do this? She kept thinking, does he really value me so little? It was then that she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Mr. Harrison, the tall, silver-haired businessman who had been quietly observing her all evening. He stood away from the table, off to the side near a large window overlooking the manicured gardens. "Mr. Harrison," she greeted him softly, her voice shaking slightly. "Is there something I can help you with?" He studied her face for a moment, his expression contemplative. "You've been doing a fine job tonight," he said, his tone calm and measured. "You carry yourself with a certain poise that's hard to ignore." Emma was caught off guard by the compliment. She glanced down at her apron, flustered. "I thank you. I'm just trying to do what's expected." He nodded. "I can see that. But there's more to you than just being a server, isn't there?" Before Emma could answer, she heard Lorraine's cutting voice from the table. "Emma, dear, we need more sauce at the end of the table," she called out. The words dripped with condescension, as though addressing a wayward child. Emma forced a small smile at Mr. Harrison. "I'm sorry I should go." He gave a slight bow of his head. "Of course." As Emma walked away, she sensed his eyes following her, filled with curiosity and maybe something like respect. When Emma returned with the sauce, Lorraine was in the midst of regaling everyone with stories of her philanthropic endeavors, benefits, auctions, and gala events. "I've donated a small fortune to the Metropolitan Art Society," she boasted, "and in return, they granted me a private showing last year. Such connections are invaluable." Ryan's sisters chimed in with their own stories of luxurious vacations and lavish purchases. Emma, listening in silence, realized how foreign this world truly was. She had grown up in a working-class neighborhood where neighbors helped each other patch roofs and share extra produce from the garden. Here, it was every person for themselves, climbing social ladders that reached dizzying heights. As she continued serving, Emma picked up snatches of conversation about her. "Ryan's wife, can you believe he made her serve? That seems heartless." "Well, maybe she volunteered. Who knows how these girls from small towns think? She's quite composed, though. I expected someone more provincial." With each overheard remark, Emma's confidence wavered, but she refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her cry or falter. She carried the trays like a professional, her expression neutral, her movement steady. Still, the mental weight was almost unbearable. She could feel tension coiling in her chest, fear and sadness battling within. How had her marriage come to this point? She'd thought Ryan cared for her once. Now he was either indifferent or cruel, and she wasn't sure which was worse. Finally, dessert was served, petite chocolate soufflés, paired with a fragrant berry compote. Emma was about to step back to let the guests enjoy their sweets when she heard Ryan and his sisters talking in hushed voices, their laughter tinkling maliciously. "Oh, it's hilarious," Ryan said quietly, not realizing Emma stood just behind them. "They're probably wondering if she works here full-time." Amelia giggled. "Yes, Mother must be so pleased she's out of the way." Juliet chimed in. "Serves her right for marrying above her station." The words were so callous, so deliberate, that Emma felt the last shards of her self-esteem crack. For the first time that evening, she let herself imagine what it would feel like to walk out, to drop her tray on the table, turn on her heel, and never look back. But she hesitated. Where would she go? And what would that solve? As if in a daze, she walked toward the kitchen, tears threatening to spill over. She had to escape for a moment, breathe, and gather herself. On her way out, she passed by Mr. Harrison again. This time, he didn't say anything, but his eyes were kind, as though silently acknowledging the bravery it took for her to keep going. Emma slipped through the swinging doors into the kitchen, set the tray down, and placed her hands on the counter, fighting the urge to sob. Marcel, the head chef, glanced her way. "You all right, Mrs. Carter?" he asked gently. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, I'm fine. Just a bit tired." Marcel opened his mouth to respond, but one of Lorraine's staff members rushed in to bark orders about clearing the dessert plate soon. Emma wiped her eyes discreetly. This wasn't her home. These weren't her people. She was alone in the midst of strangers. But something within her had already begun to harden, to grow. A realization that no matter how well she served, no matter how kind she tried to be, she would never be accepted by Ryan's family, or by Ryan himself, who allowed this charade to continue. She inhaled deeply, smoothing the apron over her skirt one more time, and steeled herself for the next round of humiliation. After dessert, the group moved to the opulent sitting room, a space filled with plush velvet couches, antique side tables, and an enormous fireplace framed by intricate marble carvings. The air smelled faintly of cigar smoke and expensive perfume. Emma followed the guests, aware of her role to offer coffee or after-dinner drinks to anyone who desired them. She carefully balanced a tray of coffee cups and saucers while weaving through the crowd. Conversation had loosened. Laughter was louder now, and the arrogant confidence that came with wealth flowed freely. Yet, amid the chatter and clinking glasses, Emma noticed more and more guests casting curious glances her way. While some looked at her with disdain, others seemed puzzled, perhaps even concerned. A couple of them whispered questions to Lorraine, who brushed off inquiries with a practiced, dismissive wave of her manicured hand. Emma tried her best not to eavesdrop, but she couldn't help catching snippets. Why would she be serving? Isn't that the wife? So bizarre, but she seems dignified. Emma felt a small surge of gratitude for those who appeared sympathetic. She might never win the approval of Lorraine or Amelia or Juliet, but she wasn't entirely alone. At least not everyone in this lavish setting was devoid of empathy. She approached a circle of men standing near the fireplace, Ryan and 3 of his business associates. They were discussing investment opportunities. Ryan kept glancing over the group's shoulders, as if searching for someone more important to impress. Emma stepped forward, offering coffee cups. One of the associates, a stout man in a pinstriped suit, took a cup and murmured, "Thank you, miss." He trailed off, uncertain how to address her. She offered a polite nod and left them to their conversation. As she moved away, she heard the stout man quietly asking Ryan, "Is that your wife?" The question hung in the air. Ryan coughed. Yes, he said, sounding annoyed. "She insisted on helping out tonight. She's, used to simpler tasks." His tone dripped with condescension, and Emma's cheeks burned. She didn't pause to hear the rest of the conversation. She continued circulating among the guests until she found herself near the large French windows that opened onto the garden. Mr. Harrison stood there again, watching the evening sky turn lavender and gold as the sun set beyond the manicured hedges. He turned when Emma neared, and she felt a little jolt of nerves. He had such an air of composure. "You're quite good at this, he said, his voice low enough that no one else could overhear. Emma mustered a half-smile. "It's just serving coffee." He shook his head. "It's more than that. You handle yourself with grace." He gestured toward the others in the room. "People like them can be vicious. You don't let it show on your face." Emma's lips trembled. "I've gotten used to it. I don't think anyone should have to get used to being treated this way," he replied, a note of disapproval in his voice. "Especially not by their own family." Emma opened her mouth to respond, but she noticed Lorraine approaching. Mr. Harrison took a small step back, his eyes flicking to Lorraine's icy expression. "Mr. Harrison," Lorraine said smoothly, "I hope everything has been to your liking tonight." He gave a polite nod. "The food was exquisite, Mrs. Carter. My compliments to your chef." He paused. "And your server here," he added, glancing at Emma, "has been extremely attentive. Lorraine's frosty smile barely concealed her contempt. Yes, well, Emma's always been good at the domestic side of things, she said in a tone that suggested an insult wrapped in false praise. I'm sure my son appreciates that she knows how to keep a household. Mr. Harrison's gaze lingered on Emma for a moment before he responded. I see, he said. The simple words were laced with meaning. Lorraine then pivoted to ask him about his latest real estate ventures, effectively dismissing Emma from the conversation. Emma slipped away, her thoughts spinning. There was something in Mr. Harrison's eyes, understanding, respect, maybe even concern. In this entire mansion full of wealthy elites, he seemed like the only one who perceived Emma as more than just a servant or a burden. She found herself in the corner of the room again, near the ornate curtains. Amelia and Juliet drifted by, laughing lightly, their scornful eyes dancing over Emma's attire. That apron suits you, Amelia teased. Maybe it's time to consider a career in hospitality. Juliet giggled, swirling her wine glass. She'd probably love that. She'd be in her element cleaning and serving. It's all she really knows how to do. A rush of anger flared in Emma's chest, but she held it back. Their cruelty wasn't worth a response. Instead, she thought about the subtle nods of appreciation she'd received from a few of Ryan's business associates. If anything, Amelia and Juliet's behavior showed that real class had nothing to do with money. At last, Lorraine clapped her hands, calling for everyone's attention. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, she said, her voice resonating through the high-ceilinged room. I believe this gathering has been most beneficial for our business and social connections. And, of course, for family. She glanced pointedly at Emma, her lips curving in a brittle smile. Emma's stomach twisted. She wanted nothing more than for the night to end. One of the older relatives, possibly an aunt or cousin, raised her glass and declared, "To the Carters." The group echoed the toast, sipping champagne. Emma, standing in the corner with an empty tray, felt the sting of exclusion. She noticed Ryan looking triumphant. This dinner was a success for him. He had paraded his wealthy connections, expanded his business circle, and humiliated Emma all in one evening. Mr. Harrison's eyes found hers across the room, and he gave a slight, reassuring nod. That small gesture felt like an anchor in a sea of hostility. Emma summoned a faint smile in return. The guests began drifting out to the grand foyer, collecting coats and partaking in final small talk. As Emma quietly helped gather empty coffee cups and discarded napkins, Mr. Harrison passed by her again. In a low voice, he said, "Sometimes it takes a difficult situation to reveal who people truly are. Don't forget your own worth." She met his gaze, grateful but speechless. He gave a gentle nod, and then followed the other guests toward the foyer. Emma watched him go, her heart heavy, yet strangely buoyed by his words. In the midst of a humiliating night, she had found a glimmer of hope. Someone saw her. Someone recognized she wasn't just a silent fixture in the Carter household. She was a person, deserving of respect. That realization sparked something inside her, a small flame of determination, which she suspected might grow into a roaring fire sooner than she dared to imagine. With most of the guests leaving, only a handful of Ryan's family members remained, lingering in the sitting room or making their way to the foyer. Emma continued her task of cleaning up, her fingers shaking from adrenaline. She felt as though she were standing on the brink of a decision that would redefine her life. Then, amidst the clinking of glasses being gathered and the soft murmur of final farewells, Emma heard Ryan's voice. He was speaking with Amelia and Juliet, clearly oblivious that Emma was nearby. "You have to admit, it was rather amusing," Amelia said, giggling into her palm. "Emma actually served everyone all night, no complaints." Ryan chuckled. "She knows her place. Besides, this dinner was important for my business dealings. I can't have her embarrassing me with small-town chatter." Anger coiled in Emma's gut, hot and insistent. She remembered the vow she had made to keep her head down, but now she felt that vow cracking. This was not just about one night's humiliation. It was about the fundamental disrespect that Ryan and his family showed her, time and time again. As she turned the corner to place the last tray of empty dishes on a side table, she overheard Ryan adding, "The real comedy is how she tries so hard to please us." She's so desperate for acceptance. She'll do anything. I doubt she'll ever stand up for herself. In that moment, something inside Emma snapped. She felt a sudden surge of self-worth, a refusal to accept that she was lesser, that she had no voice. She thought about her childhood, her mother teaching her that kindness was not weakness, that compassion was a form of strength. She thought about the glances from guests who seemed to pity her, or who admired her composure. Most of all, she thought about Mr. Harrison's words, "Don't forget your own worth." Emma took a deep breath, stepped into the open, and cleared her throat. Ryan, Amelia, and Juliet whirled around, surprise crossing their faces. Ryan's expression flickered from annoyance to a forced neutrality, as though trying to mask what Emma had just overheard. "Emma," he said stiffly, "we were just—" "I heard what you were saying," she interrupted, her voice steady. A hush fell. Even Amelia and Juliet stood quietly, as though intrigued by this uncharacteristic boldness. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "We were talking about business, that's all." He lied. Emma locked eyes with him. "I'm done being your doormat," she said simply. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, but she held her ground. "I've tried to be a good wife, to support you and this family. But I'm not going to stand here and be ridiculed anymore." Amelia let out a derisive laugh. "Oh, please. It's not like you have anywhere else to go." Emma straightened her spine. "I'd rather have nowhere to go than stay where I'm not respected." She turned to Ryan, forcing him to meet her gaze. "You may think my background makes me unworthy, but I know my own worth. I'm not just some servant to be trotted out when it suits you." Ryan bristled, glancing around to ensure no other family members were eavesdropping. He lowered his voice, his tone cold. "Emma, don't do this now. We can discuss this at home." She shook her head. "No, Ryan, we can't. Because the moment we leave this place, you'll go back to ignoring me, to letting your family treat me like garbage. And I'll be the one left picking up the pieces of my self-esteem." Amelia stepped forward, an angry flush creeping up her neck. "How dare you speak to my brother like that? He's given you everything." Emma cut her off. "He's given me nothing that matters. Money, a nice house. None of it means anything when I'm treated like I don't belong." Juliet sneered, looking Emma up and down. "And how do you plan to survive without Ryan's wealth? You think you can just walk out and start a new life?" Emma paused. The question cut deep because she didn't yet know the answer. But something told her that the unknown was better than this soul-crushing reality. "Yes," she said, surprising even herself with her conviction. "I can. And I will." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "You're upset. You'll calm down tomorrow. Just go wait in the car. I'll join you shortly." Emma studied him. This man she had once thought she loved. She saw the dismissive arrogance in his stance, the way he refused to take her words seriously. She recalled the memory of him as a charming suitor, back when she was naive enough to believe love conquered all. But that version of Ryan was gone, if he had ever existed at all. "I won't be getting in that car with you," she said quietly. "I'm leaving." A flash of panic crossed Ryan's face, masked quickly by anger. "Don't be ridiculous. How will it look if you storm out? My business associates are still here." Emma shrugged, a weight lifting off her shoulders. "That's your problem." Without waiting for a response, she unfastened the apron from her waist. The knot was tight, and for a second, she tugged it so forcefully that she stumbled. But she regained her balance, pulled the apron off, and folded it neatly. She placed it on a side table, her hands shaking with the finality of the act. Amelia scoffed. "This is childish. You'll regret this, Emma." Emma ignored her and took a step toward the hallway. She felt a swirl of emotions, fear, relief, sadness, anger. But overriding them all was an unexpected sense of freedom. As she moved, she saw Mr. Harrison standing near the archway leading to the foyer. He watched silently, a thoughtful expression on his face. Ryan's voice followed her. "Emma, if you walk out that door, don't expect to come back." She paused, turning to look over her shoulder. Her eyes met Ryan's. "I won't," she said simply. "Goodbye." And with that, she walked away, ignoring Lorraine's gasps or Amelia's insults. She passed a few scattered guests, who stared with wide eyes, clearly unsure of what was happening. Mr. Harrison stepped aside to let her pass, nodding to her in quiet respect as she went. Emma didn't stop until she was outside, the cool night air hitting her face. She had no idea where she would go or how she would manage, but in that moment, she felt more alive than she had in years. The doors of the Carter estate closed behind her, and with them, she hoped, the chapter of her life that involved constant humiliation. Emma stood on the ornate front steps of the Carter estate, her emotions swinging like a pendulum. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that the night air was colder than she had anticipated. Behind her, she heard the heavy doors swing open. Alarmed, she turned, half expecting Ryan or his mother to come storming after her. Instead, Mr. Harrison emerged, quietly shutting the door behind him. The faint sounds of music and conversation drifted out before the latch clicked into place. He walked down a few steps and stopped beside her, his hands in the pockets of his tailored overcoat. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, he broke the silence. "That was quite an exit," he said, his tone respectful. Emma let out a shaky breath. "I'm sorry you had to see that," she managed. "It must have caused quite a scene." Mr. Harrison shook his head. "No need to apologize. Sometimes, scenes are necessary to wake people up." He paused, studying her carefully. "I've met a lot of people in these circles, people who talk big about integrity and pride, but who crumble when faced with adversity. Tonight, I saw more dignity in you than in all those others combined." Emma felt her eyes sting again, this time with gratitude. She almost laughed at the irony. After an evening of disrespect and humiliation, here was someone offering her genuine kindness. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded, glancing back at the towering facade of the estate. "May I call you a cab or help you find a way home? It's late, and I'd hate for you to be stranded out here." Emma realized she had no plan. She didn't have her own car, and public transportation was virtually non-existent in this affluent neighborhood. "I don't really know where I'll go," she confessed, feeling a swell of panic at the admission. Mr. Harrison considered this. "There's a decent hotel about 15 minutes from here. I can give you a ride or arrange for one, if you'd like." He hesitated, as though choosing his words carefully. "I don't mean to overstep, but you seem like you could use a friend right now." Emma looked at him, unsure. Accepting help from a near stranger felt risky, but this night had proven she had no support within the Carter family, including her husband. "I appreciate that," she said at last, "but only if it's not too much trouble." A faint smile curved his lips. "No trouble at all." He escorted her to a sleek black car parked under one of the estate's tall hedges. The driver opened the back door for them, and Mr. Harrison gestured for Emma to enter first. She sank into the plush leather seat, feeling 1,000 conflicting emotions swirl inside her. Mr. Harrison slid in beside her, instructing the driver to head to the nearest reputable hotel. They rode in silence for a few minutes, street lights casting fleeting shadows inside the car. Finally, Mr. Harrison spoke. "I'm sorry for the rudeness you faced tonight. I can't imagine what it was like to be treated that way by your own family." Emma let out a hollow laugh. "They never really felt like family," she admitted. "From the day I married Ryan, his mother and sisters made it clear I wasn't their idea of a suitable wife." She gazed out the window, watching the lavish mansions pass by. "I guess tonight was just the culmination of everything." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I saw how you handled yourself. It takes a lot of strength to keep calm under that kind of pressure, and even more courage to walk away from it all." Emma shrugged, a tear finally slipping down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "I don't feel strong. I feel lost. I walked out without a plan, without money, without anything." Mr. Harrison's gaze was gentle. "Sometimes, not having a plan is the best place to start. It forces you to rely on your core strengths and discover what you truly want." She studied him for a moment. There was an assuredness in his voice that suggested he'd faced his own share of hardships. "Thank you," she said, meaning it fully. When the car pulled up to a boutique hotel, he stepped out first and offered his hand to help her out. She hesitated before taking it, grateful for the small act of kindness. At the check-in desk, Mr. Harrison quietly arranged and paid for a room. He insisted that Emma allow him to cover the expense for at least one night, so she could have some peace to think. Touched by his generosity, she nodded. "I'll repay you," she said, though she had no idea how or when. "I promise." He waved away her words. "I know you will, if that's important to you. But please consider it a gesture of goodwill." They stepped into the elevator, riding up to the 5th floor. The hallway was softly lit, the patterned carpet absorbing their footsteps. Outside room 514, Mr. Harrison paused and handed Emma the key card. "I'll leave you to rest," he said gently. "But before I go, let me give you my business card, in case you need anything." Emma took the small, embossed card with his name and number. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave her a respectful nod. "Sleep well, Emma." Then he turned and walked down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. Inside the room, Emma let out a shaky breath as she closed the door behind her. The room was cozy and tastefully decorated, with a queen-sized bed and a view of the city lights. She sank onto the bed, staring at her reflection in the large mirror opposite her. For a moment, she didn't recognize the woman looking back. Eyes red from withheld tears, hair disheveled, cheeks flushed with a mixture of shame and relief. Then, slowly, realization took root. She was free. Free from the stifling constraints of Ryan's elitist world, from the constant barrage of insults and belittling remarks. Yes, she had left with almost nothing. No plan, no money, no stable future. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she owned her life. Emma lay back against the pillows, exhaustion washing over her. Tomorrow, she would figure out the next step. Tonight, she would let herself feel a strange kind of hope, buoyed by the fact that, even if she stood alone, she no longer stood in a place where she was unwanted. The following morning, Emma awoke to a pale dawn light filtering through the curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back, the dinner, the humiliation, her decision to leave. A swirl of anxiety and relief took hold in her chest. She checked her phone, half expecting a flurry of messages from Ryan. There were none. Not a single missed call or text. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she realized she needed a plan. She couldn't stay at this hotel forever. She needed money, a job. Fortunately, she still had her personal bank account, though it was modest, and the phone in her hand. She also had a degree in business administration, though she hadn't used it much since marrying Ryan. She'd taken on small volunteer roles and part-time charity work, but nothing stable or high-paying. As she contemplated her next move, Mr. Harrison's card on the bedside table caught her eye. She picked it up, tracing the embossed lettering. Was it too forward to reach out to him? He'd been kind, but she hardly knew him. And yet, he had seen her at her lowest and didn't turn away. She decided to take a risk. Dialing his number, she felt her heart pound with each ring. A crisp, professional voice answered. "Harrison speaking." "Mr. Harrison? This is Emma," she said, her voice shaky. I hope I'm not bothering you." "Emma," he replied warmly. "I'm glad you called. How are you holding up?" She exhaled, relieved he didn't sound annoyed. "I'm okay. I need to find a job. I know it's sudden, but you mentioned last night something about not forgetting my worth." She hesitated, embarrassed. "I'm not sure where to start." There was a pause on the other end. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "I might have an opportunity that could fit someone with your composure and perseverance. My company is looking for a project coordinator, someone who can manage people, handle logistics, and maintain dignity under stress. Last night proved you excel in exactly those areas." Emma's mouth fell open. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Mr. Harrison replied. "I'd like you to come in for an interview, meet the team, and see if it's a good fit. No promises, of course, but if you're interested, we can set something up as early as today." Her chest felt tight, with a mixture of astonishment and gratitude. She agreed, scribbling down the address he gave her. They arranged to meet in his office at noon. After she hung up, Emma stared at the phone, hardly believing her luck. Or was it luck? Perhaps it was a testament to the qualities she'd forgotten she possessed. She took a quick shower, dressed in the only business casual outfit she had, a simple blouse and pencil skirt, and checked out of the hotel, thanking the staff. With her small suitcase in hand, she hailed a taxi to the address Mr. Harrison had provided. The building was a sleek, modern tower in the heart of the city's financial district. She stepped into the lobby, her nerves threatening to overtake her. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor felt interminable, and she tried to quell her shaking hands by clasping them together. When the door slid open, Emma found a spacious, elegantly decorated reception area. A friendly receptionist directed her to Mr. Harrison's office. He was waiting for her, wearing a tailored suit and a welcoming smile. "Emma," he said, extending his hand. "I'm pleased you came." She shook his hand, still in awe. "Thank you for inviting me." They sat down in a glass-walled conference room, where Mr. Harrison explained the position in more detail. The company specialized in high-end real estate and investment management. The project coordinator role entailed organizing events, leading smaller teams, and managing day-to-day operations for new developments. Emma's heart thudded. On paper, it was a leap from her minimal professional experience. But as they spoke, Mr. Harrison asked questions about how she dealt with stressful situations, coordinated small charity functions, and even how she navigated last night's fiasco without losing her composure. By the end of the conversation, he leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. "I believe you have the skills we're looking for, and more importantly, the character." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "I can't thank you enough for this chance." Mr. Harrison raised a hand. "Let's talk compensation and responsibilities, and if we reach an agreement, we can finalize an offer." He hesitated, then added, "Emma, I'm well aware of the personal challenges you're facing. If you need time or an advance to get back on your feet." She shook her head, her voice firm. "I'm prepared to work hard for everything. I don't want charity." He smiled, impressed by her resolve. "That's exactly what I admire about you." They spent another hour, hashing out details. It wasn't an executive-level salary, but it was far more than Emma had ever made. Enough to rent a small apartment, regain her independence, and start a new life without Ryan. When they finally shook hands, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years: self-confidence. A week later, Emma stood in an elegant office cubicle furnished with a sleek desk and a computer. She had already immersed herself in the new role, impressing her co-workers with her meticulous organizational skills and warm demeanor. News of her hiring had circulated, and some employees, aware of Mr. Harrison's keen eye for talent, were intrigued by the newcomer who'd arrived under mysterious circumstances. On this particular afternoon, Emma was reviewing documents for an upcoming property launch when her phone vibrated. It was a number she recognized immediately: Ryan. She hesitated, her stomach twisting. She hadn't heard from him since the night she walked out, and a swirl of conflicting emotions rose inside her. Curiosity won out, and she answered. "Hello," she said, keeping her tone cool. Ryan's voice came through, subdued and tentative. "Emma, we need to talk." She exhaled. "About what?" He paused. "I've been thinking about what happened. Mother's furious, but I realize I might have overreacted." She bit back a bitter laugh. "Overreacted? I'm at work right now," she replied. "We can't talk for long." Ryan seized the opening. "Work? Emma, come on. Let me see you in person. I can pick you up." She cut him off. "I'm not interested in going back," she said firmly. "I have a new job, a new life." He seemed flabbergasted. "Already?" "Emma, listen. We've been married for 2 years. You can't just throw that away over one argument." She gripped the phone tighter, anger sparking. "It was never just one argument, Ryan. It was years of your family treating me like a second-class citizen, and you allowing it. You're only calling now because you're worried about how it looks to your associates." He sputtered. "No, that's not." Emma sighed. "I'm going to hang up now. Good luck with your business deals, Ryan. I truly hope you figure out what you want." And with that, she ended the call. She turned the phone to silent, ignoring the wave of tremors that ran through her body. A small voice in her head asked, "Did I do the right thing?" Yet, The relief coursing through her suggested she had. Hours later, as she was wrapping up for the day, she heard a commotion near the reception area. Suddenly, Ryan burst in, past the startled receptionist who was trying to stop him. He wore a suit, but it was rumpled, and his eyes had a frantic gleam. "Emma," he called, spotting her desk. Co-workers peered over their cubicles, curiosity piqued. She stood up, feeling a mix of embarrassment and anger. "Ryan, what are you doing here? This is my workplace." He ran a hand through his hair. "I had to see you. You won't answer my calls, and you just left. That's not fair." Emma felt her cheeks grow hot. "Please keep your voice down. Let's go somewhere private." She led him to a small conference room, aware of curious stares trailing behind them. Once the door was closed, Ryan exploded, his voice hushed but furious. "I can't believe you. You humiliated me in front of my family and business associates. And then you vanished." Emma leaned against the conference table, arms crossed. "You humiliated yourself," she retorted. "Your family's treatment of me was cruel, and you did nothing to stop it." He opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. "Fine," he muttered. "Maybe I made mistakes, but we're married. We can work through this." She studied his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the desperation. Part of her almost felt pity, but she remembered the laughter at her expense, the dismissal of her feelings. "Ryan," she said, her tone measured, "I'm done. There's nothing to work through." His eyes flashed. "So you're just going to walk away? After everything I've done for you? The house, the lifestyle." Emma raised a hand, cutting him off. "All those things mean nothing if I'm not respected. I don't want your money or your lifestyle. I want dignity, love, and kindness, none of which you or your family have shown me." He stared at her, breathing heavily, at a loss for words. Finally, he spoke, a last-ditch attempt. "They're my family, Emma. You should have tried harder to fit in." Emma felt the final thread of patience snap. "I did. For 2 years. I gave everything I had, and all I got in return was mockery." She gestured around the conference room. "I have a job here. People treat me with respect. I'm appreciated for my skills, not belittled for where I come from." Ryan snorted. "What, this job? Do you think it compares to what I can give you?" "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "Because it's mine. I earned it, and I'd rather have a modest income and self-respect than any amount of wealth that comes with being demeaned." He stood there, fists clenched. "You'll regret this," he spat finally. "You don't know what you're doing." She met his gaze evenly. "I do. Now, please leave." Ryan stormed out, pushing past the receptionist who tried again to stop him. Emma let out a trembling breath and returned to her desk, where a few concerned co-workers looked on. She offered them a small smile, silently thanking them for their discretion. Later that evening, she found a text from Ryan on her phone. "You'll be sorry." She felt a pang of sadness for what could have been if only he had cared enough to stand by her. But she pushed it aside. She had her own path now. In the weeks following Emma's departure, the Carter estate was awash in whispered arguments and frantic attempts to maintain appearances. Ryan's mother, Lorraine, was livid that Emma had dared to walk out. Amelia and Juliet had their own opinions, mostly that Emma should be cut off from any financial settlement. Ryan himself vacillated between anger and regret, unsure how to handle the fallout. He continued to conduct business, meeting with associates who had attended the disastrous dinner. Some were polite enough not to bring up Emma. Others openly questioned why his wife had served them. The truth became harder to hide as rumors circulated about the humiliating treatment she'd received and her dramatic exit. One afternoon, Ryan received a call from Mr. Harrison. Suppressing a flicker of anxiety, Ryan took the call in his private study. "Harrison," he greeted, trying for a friendly tone. "How can I help you?" Mr. Harrison's voice on the other end was measured, but distinctly cool. "Ryan, I'm calling to discuss the partnership we've been considering. After what transpired at your family dinner, I have concerns about your leadership and judgment." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Concerns? That was a personal matter, Mr. Harrison." "Personal matters often reflect how one conducts business," Mr. Harrison replied. Your wife, Emma, showed more composure and respect for others than anyone else in that room. I've since learned she left you, which speaks volumes about the situation." Ryan's hand tightened on the phone. "That's between her and me," he snapped, then tried to sound conciliatory. "Look, Harrison, we've been negotiating this deal for months. You know I'm the best partner to expand your investment portfolio." Harrison was silent for a moment. Then he spoke in a calm, unyielding tone. "A business partner who lacks integrity is no partner of mine. We're done here, Ryan." The line went dead. Ryan stared at his phone, rage and humiliation coursing through him. Over the following days, more calls and emails revealed that other associates were distancing themselves as well. It turned out that humiliating his wife in front of powerful people did not bode well for Ryan's reputation. Meanwhile, Lorraine tried to salvage the family's image by hosting another, more exclusive gathering. But word had already spread. The Carters' once impenetrable social standing was wavering. Some of their own friends found excuses not to attend gatherings, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Alone in his study one evening, Ryan poured himself a stiff drink. He sank into a leather armchair, the weight of isolation bearing down on him. He scrolled through old photos on his phone, a vacation he and Emma had taken to a lakeside cabin during the early days of their marriage. She was smiling, her eyes bright with affection for him. He remembered thinking how lucky he was, that someone so genuine and kind had chosen him. Where did it all go wrong? He wondered. Then a bitter realization struck him. He'd sacrificed her love and respect for the approval of his mother and sisters, for the fleeting satisfaction of lording his status over her. He stared at his phone, a half-formed impulse to call Emma again. But he knew she wouldn't answer. She was gone, and the emptiness in the house was now mirrored by the emptiness in his life. It was too late for remorse to fix anything. On a sunny morning 3 months later, Emma stood in the living room of her cozy new apartment. The walls were still bare, but the space felt like hers. A small bouquet of wildflowers sat on the kitchen counter, a gift from a colleague at work, congratulating her on a successful project launch. She stepped onto the tiny balcony, sipping a cup of tea, gazing at the city below. Her life had changed in ways she never anticipated. She had a job where she was valued, a modest but comforting home, and the freedom to be herself without judgment. She often worked closely with Mr. Harrison, who remained a mentor and friend. Their shared respect had grown into a genuine camaraderie. Once or twice, she caught herself wondering if there could ever be more. But for now, she was content focusing on her career and rediscovering who she was outside of a toxic marriage. That morning, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, she answered. "Hello." A hesitant voice spoke. "Emma, it's Ryan's mother." Emma stiffened, surprise coursing through her. "Mrs. Carter, why are you calling?" There was a sigh on the other end. "We wanted to invite you to another family gathering, to talk things over. I know you and Ryan, things didn't end well, but we can sort this out." Emma paused, exhaling. "Another gathering?" She glanced around her sunlit apartment, feeling a calm sense of belonging she'd never felt in the Carter estate. "Mrs. Carter," she began gently, "I appreciate the call, but I've moved on. What happened that night wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the culmination of a long pattern of disrespect. I won't step back into that environment." Lorraine's tone turned cold. "You're making a mistake. You belong with Ryan. You're his wife." Emma gazed over the balcony railing, at the city bustling with possibility. "I don't belong to anyone," she replied, "and I'm not coming back." She ended the call, a steady calm washing over her. She returned to her living room, sipping her tea, and felt the weight of the past lift. In its place was a sense of hope and self-reliance she once thought she'd never find. Later that week, she finalized the paperwork for an uncontested divorce. Ryan didn't fight it. She assumed he realized any legal battle would expose more about his treatment of her, further harming his reputation. With the stroke of a pen, she closed that chapter of her life for good. In the months that followed, Emma's career blossomed. Her attention to detail, ability to manage multiple tasks, and genuine kindness made her an invaluable asset to Mr. Harrison's company. She oversaw the launch of new real estate developments, forged strong relationships with clients, and even hosted her own networking events, this time as a respected professional, not a servant. Her personal life also began to flourish. She made friends at work who invited her to social events. She joined a local yoga studio and rediscovered old hobbies, like painting and volunteering at a nearby animal shelter. Each day, she woke up feeling a sense of purpose, no longer dreading what new insult or belittlement might come her way. On a warm Friday evening, she stood on her balcony again, reflecting on her journey. The memory of that fateful dinner at the Carter estate no longer pained her. Instead, it served as a stark reminder of what she'd overcome. As the sun set over the skyline, she felt nothing but gratitude for her freedom, her self-worth, and the new life she had built without Ryan. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating stories like this.